Good. Right. Cool. Otis McDonald. Bless him. Copyright free, Facebook. Yeah, coming up. What is it? Tuesday. Yeah. Oh, Stephen Lang. Hello, mate. God bless you, Stephen Lang. God bless you, mate. Elaine Gillespie. Call in. gov.ly/rant. Call in. Crying out loud, somebody call in. Ask Albert a question. We've got Albert Burgess on tonight, coming up in about 6 minutes. 6 minutes, people. So if you're watching an archive version, you might want to fast forward about 5 minutes, 6, 7 minutes. And I'll get my guest on the blower. And hopefully it'll be better than the other night, yeah, because that was a nightmare. Ben Walker was on here, and so many things to ask him. And the whole thing went tits up, because the tech went a bit like that, actually. Albert in a shirt and tie. Yeah. Mention Jimmy Savile. Don't mention Jimmy Savile. Jingle jangle. Oh, come on. Yeah. Oh, no. Hello? Oh, hold on. How do I do that? How do you do that? There you go. Albert. Oh, blimey.
Hello, Ollie. How are you?
Yeah, good. Oh, that's Albert Burgess. We've got his video too. Oh no! Oh,
I've got the video. Hang on, Ollie. Look, trousers too.
Oh! You didn't want to see that. You didn't want to see that.
I didn't, but never mind.
4 minutes. 4 minutes. Blimey! Those are good the news. Do you know what's going on in the news today, Albert?
Not really. No.
Oh, blimey! I suppose I should have a look, really. Probably too late now. Why just wing it? I think that Corbyn said, let's go for a second referendum, didn't he?
Well, I saw something about that, but then Corbyn's an idiot, isn't he?
Yeah, basically. I suppose I should sort your video out. Oh, I'll do it in a minute. Hold on. It's another few minutes, yeah, but I'm just sorting out. There we go. Oh. Right.
I've been having fun, Ollie. I've been getting new carpets down, so
nice.
Yeah, everything's been upside down for weeks now.
Oh, that's nice, mate. So you got your carpet sorted?
I've got that sorted. Well, partly. I'm waiting for the bedroom ones to come, but downstairs I've got them sorted, so I'm able to start putting my books back on the shelf so I can refer to them.
Blimey, I'll tell you what.
They've been either locked up in my shed or boxed up in my bedroom. I've got the ones in my bedroom to bring down.
Oh, I don't know what's going on with the music. Another 3 minutes, people. 2 minutes. 2 minutes, people.
No idea.
Right. That's how I sorted out. There we go.
What are we talking about, Ollie?
Oh, I don't know. The here and now. The here and now, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's going on right now? Right. 2 minutes. 1 minute. Oh, blimey. What's going on in the news? Probably nothing useful. Got it. Yeah. Please share the show, folks. You can share the show. Go on. Yeah. And on YouTube too. There we go. Yeah, okay, alright, okay. Thank you. Blimey. Hello? Oh. Screw. Hey folks, good evening, good people. Welcome to the Daily Brexit. Holding democracy to account, fighting for self-determination and exposing plutocracy and failing miserably. I'm Olly Connelly, thanks for turning up. Oh, blimey, hold on. Right. Chicken. And now, they're here, and now, they're here and now, now. As the country sleepwalks into tyranny, a parliament distinct from the British people. Constitutionalist Albert Burgess joins me to count sheep. And so can you on Discord, gov.ly/rant. And see you in the comments. Help improve the show, paypal.me/Brexit. Thank you. Please share the show, like the thing, get involved, cheers. All that. Oh. I've got a bit of a cold. I've got me 3 ginger tea actually as well, lined up. The intro's a bit long, isn't it? Right. Good. Right. So we got old beach disco going on in the background from Doogie Wood. That's very kind. It's all copyright free, Facebook, yeah? Albert Burgess, can you hear me, sir?
I can indeed.
Excellent. Good. Your audio is good too. You're on Skype tonight, and we've even got you on the... There you go. There we go. God, blimey.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me see if I can put him up on no, one, not two. Hold on. I'll have to do this on YouTube because I've been neglecting YouTube. And I'm trying to do something about that. So I'll pull Albert up his video on YouTube too, because one person I think is watching on YouTube right now. So thank you, and I will look at your comment at some stage as well. So there you go, Albert. It's just all the headlines today were Groundhog Day, and that's what it is. It's Groundhog Day. Is there any Brexit that you see coming out of this?
Well, I think one has to look at this from a perspective that just about everybody and his uncle in Parliament wants to stay in the EU. And just about everybody and his uncle in the country wants to leave the EU.
Yeah.
And there are very good reasons for leaving and no good reasons for staying, really. And what we've got now is a Parliament which is basically totally out of control with the wishes of the people. And they are forgetting the fact that they are there to represent the views of the people who elect them.
Yep.
Now, I know my MP, John Howell, when I was having a discussion with him at one of his surgeries, told me that now he's been elected to Parliament, he does what he wants, not what anybody else wants. And I think that's a common approach to all of our members of Parliament.
What constituency is that? What constituency is that?
And all of their placemen in the House of Lords.
Albert, what constituency is yours?
Henley.
Well, that's isn't that what's his name? Boris? No, he's Henley on Thames.
It's John Howell.
John Howell is your MP.
Yeah, it used to be Boris. It's now John Howell.
Right. Okay. Where's Boris now? Out of interest.
I've no idea.
All right. So your MP, his constituents voted to leave, did they?
Well, I've no idea about that either. I voted to leave.
You're not sure what the makeup was in that particular part of the world?
I have no idea. I think they will be strongly with the government line because, frankly, if you want to elect an MP here, you could put up a chimpanzee and as long as it had a Tory rose there, it would be elected.
Yeah.
And exactly the same way that my mum and dad in Kilburn, where I was born, would always vote for Labour. No matter what the politician was, they would always vote Labour. So if you put up a chimpanzee in a Labour shirt in Kilburn, it would be elected. So, I think that is a problem with our politics. People follow what their parents did and they're following what their parents voted and they're following what their parents voted, and nobody's actually bothering to think about the questions which are important, which is, do we want to be an independent sovereign state making our own laws and doing our own thing? And the answer is yes, we do. But nobody's thinking that. It's just, I despair really at a lot of the comments that I see on Facebook from people where they're commenting on things where they obviously have no idea of what is actually going on here or about the legal position.
Albert, okay, hold that thought. I want to read a story which you may or may not have seen today. Let me pull this up on the screen as well so folks can see it. Now then. This is Breitbart's leading with this, and they led with a similar story the other day, which I read out on the show. Activate the Queen. Government may call on monarch to block anti-Brexit wrecking bills, is their headline. And I'll just read a bit of this because, Albert, you're well poised, thankfully, to talk us through this a bit, I hope. Government sources have confirmed that the Queen may be advised to refuse to grant the royal assent to parliamentary legislation aimed at blocking Brexit. The confirmation came from a senior minister who spoke to The Telegraph following publication of a policy exchange paper on the subject by Sir Stephen Laws, QC, a former first parliamentary counsel. Remain MPs are currently advancing various plots to take control of the Brexit process from Theresa May, who is at least nominally opposed to delaying exit day, scheduling a rerun of the 2016 referendum, or ruling out a clean no-deal withdrawal from the EU. Is writing Breitbart here, yeah. The most controversial of these is a scheme devised by Dominic Grieve, the former Attorney General, who wants to allow a minority of MPs to take control of the parliamentary timetable. Now, I understand that was that particular element of his requirement. He's taken that away from his amendment or whatever, as I understand it. That particular concern. Nonetheless, they're trying to scupper it, clearly. This would be unprecedented, but the Remain backing Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow, already broke with centuries of precedent to allow Grieve to amend an unmendable business motion against the advice of parliamentary clerks shortly after a meeting with the Tory MP in his Grace and Favour apartments in the Palace of Westminster. Was Keith Vaz there? No. I'm sure that was a different kind of an encounter. Might not a government in this situation think that this was precisely the last resort for which the royal assent process is retained? Asked Sir Stephen rhetorically. Who's Sir Stephen? Somebody. Hold on. Who's Sir Stephen? Sir Stephen Laws, QC. This is the guy that's bringing this up, yeah? Might not a government in this situation think that this was precisely the last resort for which the royal assent process is retained? He asks. Albert, what do you think?
Well, I think that Sir Stephen Laws, or whatever his name is, or whatever his qualifications is, has no idea what he's talking about. I mean, frankly,
oh really?
You
just burst my bubble there, mate. I thought maybe this is a way.
The common law of being a king of England, that's governed by the common law, because we didn't have parliaments when we elected our first kings. We didn't have parliaments as such, so it was all common law, and parliamentary legislation came later. So the common law of kingships makes the king the supreme governor of England with the absolute right to say yes or no to anything. And in the time of King George III, he had a 22-year running battle with the House of Commons as to where sovereignty actually lay. Yeah. Did it lay with him as the lawfully anointed king, or did it lay with the House of Commons as the elected house? Right. After a speech by William Pitt, the junior, he said that is it better to be ruled by one despot or 350 despots who can't agree? After that speech, the king won the vote. Yes. And so not only by the common law of England, but by parliamentary vote, which has never been repeated, Queen Elizabeth II is the supreme governor of England and has the absolute right, if she wishes to, in times of national emergency, and in fact we are in a time, I think, of national emergency, she can simply prorogue Parliament and, taking advisors of her own choosing, run the country herself. Yes. Without any
that was Breitbart's story the other day, actually. That May could ask her to prorogue without
any say in from Parliament or politicians.
What does
or even a peerage?
What does prorogue mean, Albert? What does prorogue mean?
Prorogue means it sacked a bloody lot of them, really.
Really? You know, excellent.
I mean, it just means close down Parliament.
That is the nuclear option, I suppose, isn't it? That's the nuclear option from the point of view of sovereignty. If the Queen wanted to do her job, but she doesn't, does she?
Right. She doesn't. Now, the problem we have with Queen Elizabeth, is that basically from birth she was educated in constitutional law by a man called Sir Henry. Can't think of his other bloody name, Sir Henry somebody or other, who was a Fabian, and we all know that the Fabians want to destroy all that's good in this world, so he is not going to tell her exactly how much authority she has, and she's been brought up to believe that the Constitution a la Dicey, Professor Dicey was a professor of constitutional law in the 1860s, and wrote a book on it, in which he espouses the sovereignty of Parliament. Well, Parliament is not sovereign. Parliament, the Queen is sovereign. Parliament are there according to our law, Parliament are there not as a sovereign body, but as advisors to the sovereign. And basically what they do, the House of Commons in 1420 blackmailed Henry V into allowing them to initiate all legislation. He wanted to build castles on the coast and roads so that we could get to them quickly if we needed to. The House of Commons refused the money to do that unless he said, well, okay, you can originate all legislation. So they blackmailed him into doing that. Now, blackmail is and was then a crime, but they did that. He got his castles. They got the right to originate all legislation. And ever since then, they have been on a power grab. And they keep having little digs and little niggles at it and getting a little bit more here and a little bit more there. They reached crisis point in 1911 after the death of Edward VII. Edward VII had been presented with the Parliament Act, and he refused the assent to it on the grounds that it was unconstitutional, and by removing the House of Lords' powers to throw out a bill, it actually removed the protection from his subjects. That's what he told Asquith. Shortly after that, at the opening of Parliament, Asquith was ordered to go to the country. He had an election. His ministers went round the country telling the poor working class people who weren't thinking that them bastards in the House of Lords were stopping the working man getting a pension, because part of the thing that Asquith did was he put a budget through Parliament which was going to give the working man a pension. Now, the House of Lords looked at that, and they employed an awful lot of working men on their estates. And so they knew what the working man was earning, and they knew that the extra 3 pence in the pound income tax that it would cost to fund the pension was more, in fact, than the working man could afford on top of the taxes he was already paying. They rejected it, and so Asquith and his ministers tried putting the Parliament Act through. The king rejected that and ordered him to go to the country. Now, the budget was put forward in 1909. Shortly after that, the ministers from Asquith went round the country telling the people that those bastards in the House of Lords in their big estates with their big castles and mansion houses and all their money wouldn't, in fact, approve a pension for the working man. The House of Lords felt it was beneath them to go round the country and say, well, look, boys and girls, this is the reason we threw it out. And believing from an earlier ruling in 1677 that they could not, in fact, amend a money bill, they weren't in a position to amend it and take half the tax and pay half the pension, which was still more than the working man was getting. So basically, Asquith was then re-elected to Parliament. When he opened Parliament, the king said on the opening speech, where he opened Parliament, when he got to the Parliament Act, he said in Parliament that the only reason he was doing this was because his ministers had told him he had to. Now, shortly after that, he could still, once it had gone through Parliament, both houses, and come back to him, he could still have refused the assent. And he obviously refused it once, and there was every chance he would refuse it again. So he could have refused the assent. But shortly after Asquith got back into power and he'd opened Parliament and he heard the speech by the king, which did attract some comment nationally, he fell ill and he died. I did write to the Commissioner of Police.
The king did? The king.
Yeah, well, yes, the king fell ill and died.
Which
say I'd be very interested in the post-mortem results on Edward VII.
Edward VII. Edward VII we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Right.
The son of Queen Victoria.
So, okay, and this was what, 1912 or so? 1911?
No, because the Parliament Act was put through in 1911, and King George V, who was not due to be king, he had actually had an older brother. Right. Well, a few months before his father had died, the older brother had died with pneumonia. So that was good for George, because Princess Mary of Teck and King and Prince George were in fact loved up. But Princess Mary in Teck was in fact betrothed to marry the older brother, and had been since the day she was born. And being a royal princess in this country meant you did what you were told. So had the older brother lived, she would have had to marry him, which would have not been her ideal choice of husband. So when the older brother died, that left the way clear for George and Princess Mary to get married. And I remember seeing Queen Mary many years ago when I was a young boy, and my dad took me to see a procession, and she was in a coach dressed completely in black because she was still in mourning for the loss of George V. And this was, round about the crowning of Queen Elizabeth II. So basically she'd been in mourning all that time. Now, George V was told when he came to the throne by a government minister who happened to be a peer, and he said that the king kept all of his prerogatives, but he couldn't use any of them unless he had the backing of a government minister, which means he hasn't got any, does it? Because no government minister is going to put a bill through Parliament and then say to the king, well, one of your prerogatives is the right to say no, so you can refuse the assent to this bill I've just put through Parliament. No government minister is going to do that. No. So basically, George V was lied to about his authority, and so was Edward VIII, who was frankly a waste of space anyway, and I don't think would have made a good king. George VI,
Edward and Mrs. Simpson bloke.
George VI, who was never due to become king, suddenly had it thrust upon him, and immediately found himself fighting a world war. That's right. So he didn't have a lot of time to worry about the Constitution. He was more worried, spending his time worrying about how we were going to survive and win the world war. And he died very young. He was a heavy smoker. And he died very young as a result of his smoking. And Queen Elizabeth, who'd been brought up and educated by a Fabian, was from the age of 12 to 22, which is when she became queen, had been told a pack of lies about what her authority in relation to Parliament is. Parliament constitutionally and legally are only advisors to the Crown. The decision making lies squarely with the Crown. Now, I used to know a man called John Gourier. John Gourier had been an army officer in a yeomanry regiment. Now, these are very exclusive, the yeomanry regiments. You can't be an officer in a yeomanry regiment unless your daddy's a millionaire a couple of times over. And as being a yeomanry regiment officer and being an exclusive regiment, he found himself assigned to the royal family. And he spent many years working closely with the royal family. And he told me that the Queen, from day one, has absolutely hated the idea of the European Union, but didn't feel that she had any authority to do anything about it. And that were the people to revolt and go into a rebellion, then the Queen would come down on the side of the people. Right? He also said that if you mention the European Union in front of Princess Anne, and I really like Princess Anne, I think she's got physical and moral courage. And if you mention the European Union in front of Princess Anne, the air is bluer than it ever was in any barrack room he was ever in his life. Because she positively hates it. Now, I did at one stage write to the Queen and say, please, take the boys out of the line of inheritance and please give it to Anne. Because I think Anne, I would love to be a fly on the wall when somebody like Tony Blair went into Anne and said to her, look, you've got to do this, that or the other, because I should think Anne would put her riding crop to a completely new use.
Wow, that sounds quite sexy, actually. Okay, right, let's take a few comments, and we've got.
It depends on your state of mind, really.
we've got. In fact, I've got a request for you, but I'll come on to that, Albert. Yeah, I'll come on to that. Right. Okay, we've got a few comments, and we've also got some folks on Discord. Rachel Caroline Davidson also Princess Anne. Dave Fergie is here in the room and can speak in a sec. Rachel Caroline Davidson, we can write to the Queen. We, the people, ought to all write to the Queen and tell her. John Middleton, Encyclopedia Dictionary Guidelines. Ooh, boy, dates. The lot have A to L. Other got half got pissed on Margarita. And okay, John, I can't read that, mate. Sarah Boland, this is really fascinating. I love history. Rachel Caroline Davidson, EU is treasonous. Somebody ought to write to the Queen. Or everybody ought to, as per Lisbon Treaty states. PJ Tansley, we have to safeguard no deal and prevent an extension of Article 50. Dave Fergie, mate, how are you? Good to see you about on Discord.
Hello again.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. I think it's about 6 or 7 months since I've been on here, but I have been watching you.
Well, that's great. That's great. It's lovely to speak to you again. Thank you. What would you like to say?
Well, I just came on tonight to discuss the mess that is Brexit, but we're talking about history, which is okay. But
Albert looks at this from the point of view of a constitutionalist. What do you think of this idea being mooted by Breitbart to have Theresa May go to the Queen and say, we actually need you to refuse to accept this legislation coming from Parliament. This is not from Her Majesty's government, in other words.
Excuse me. It just won't happen. I mean, the Queen is out of it. She's essentially part of the globalist cabal, so she ain't going to interfere in this. I mean, they're doing everything they can to stop it, and it looks right now as if they will. And I don't think any way whatsoever.
Can I ask you where you got that idea from? That the Queen is part of the globalist cabal?
It's an opinion.
It's in what?
It's an opinion.
Dave, try and get your microphone a bit closer to your mouth. Because
I've just bought this brand new microphone. It's very expensive. Is it not working?
It is now. Just a sec, Albert. It is now, Dave. It is better. Yeah. Because this is very interesting. I'd like to hear you guys spar, please.
So Albert said, "Where did I get that idea from?" It's an opinion. But
but you don't get an opinion out of thin air.
One sec, Albert, one at a time. Let him explain it.
Albert. What information did you use to get the opinion?
Okay, yes, answer that, Dave, please. And Albert, let him answer it.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'll start again. You do not form an opinion without seeing things that are going on around you. Where did you get the information which leads you to the opinion that the Queen is part of an international cabal? Presumably, you're talking about the New World Order.
Well, you have to look at all the evidence over the years. I mean,
what evidence?
There are constitutional issues with regard to the Queen, but the Queen, the last time the Queen got involved, as far as I'm aware, was in Australia with Gough Whitlam when she kicked him out of office. So
she didn't kick him out of office. She did a good job
there, but
would
she interfere with Brexit? I doubt it very much, and that's just a personal opinion. I'm sorry if it's not substantiated, but it's a personal opinion.
Yeah,
and I look forward in the months to come to be proven wrong, but I doubt that I will.
We got old Piers Garnham.
The fact is there is absolutely no evidence. There's an awful lot of crap on the internet about the Queen doing this and that and the other, taking kids, killing them, sexually abusing them, all that sort of nonsense. The Queen being the head mason in the world and being part of the New World Order.
I mean,
it's all
that's
crap.
Hold on, Dave.
If you don't like the answer,
you can't talk over each. If you talk over each other, then we can't work out what either of you are saying. So, okay, Albert just basically said that there's a lot of Say that again. Sum it up very quickly, Albert, please.
Right, there's a lot of crap on the internet about the Queen and the royal family, about them being paedophiles and part of the New World Order and all the rest of it. There is absolutely no evidence anywhere to substantiate any of that.
Fine, but have I brought that up? That's not part of my argument.
Well, no, but you're talking about her being part of a cabal. Now the New World Order is part of that cabal. I mean, where else do you get the idea from? I mean, a cabal must consist of certain people and certain groups, and the only cabal that I know about that's being talked about regularly at the moment is the New World Order. So what makes you think that the Queen is anything to do with the New World Order?
So you don't believe in the New World Order?
Do I believe in the New World Order? I believe that there are a lot of people around the world, including what's her name, Merkel in Germany, who has just said that she's going to keep pushing for one world government, which is the New World Order.
That's right.
So basically,
she and Merkel have got a pact.
Is a definite threat.
She and Merkel have put together a pact, haven't they? You carry on, guys. I'll see if I can find that story.
Right. Would you mind very much if my good lady wife Lynn makes?
No, go ahead.
I'd like to know why the Queen allowed us to be signed up to the EU by Ted Heath.
Well,
without
the
saying
Queen actually didn't.
And I will never forgive her for that.
Hold on, Albert, let her finish the question.
To protect this country, and right from the beginning, she didn't.
Okay,
how about that then?
Right, the Queen didn't actually do that. If you actually read the reports that come out of the House of Commons, there was a report pushed out in the 1990s from the House of Commons library, in which they say that the royal assent has not been given in person by the sovereign since 1854. That was the reign of Queen Victoria. And I believe that what happened was that Queen Victoria was chucking out bills and they didn't like it. So they then went back to something which was brought up and invented by Henry VIII. He didn't want to sign the death warrant for his queen, didn't want to be seen to killing his queen. So he appointed a panel of 5 barons and told them to sign it. Now, had they not signed it, they'd have fallen foul of the king, and that would have given them major grief. So they signed it.
Is that a fact, or is that your belief?
This is what is known as the automatic assent. Now, this has been resurrected.
Is that a fact, or is that your belief?
Is that a fact?
It is a fact. It's a historical fact, and it is a fact of life that from the time of Queen Victoria onwards, the royal assent has been increasingly used as the automatic assent, which is a group of 5 peers picked by the government of the day. So they obviously, it's supposed to be cross-party, but they're obviously going to look for peers in the other parties who agree with the general government policy.
When was royal assent last used?
And they issue the royal assent. And the House of Commons library.
When was royal assent last used?
The royal assent was last refused. I mean, the Parliament
not refused. Used.
Hold on. Whoa! For crying out loud! Listen, Dave, your audio is absolutely dreadful. Why is it so bad? It's like, I don't know. I know you just got a new headset. I think you've got your levels too high on your PC or whatever it is you're using. Yeah. Because you should not be breaking up as much. That's a separate issue. That's maybe.
Let me try this, okay?
Can I answer the question anyway, Ollie?
That sounds a bit better. Well, hold on a sec, Albert. We've got peers here. Thank Dave.
Is that okay?
No, it sounds. What is it? When the level is way too high and it's sort of screeching.
Right, I'm turning it down now. How's that?
A bit better. Turn it a lot more.
How about that?
Doesn't sound any different, really.
I'll turn it right down.
Okay, maybe move. Okay, move the mic away from your mouth now. That's
what the wife said to me before. Yep. Okay.
Well,
How's about that?
that is better. Yeah, you were breaking up when you had the mic away from your mouth before, but maybe I don't know. Anyway, sometimes these things need setting up a bit.
I bought this Shure 58 microphone. With
That is good
special
quality. You sound pretty sexy, actually, mate. Okay, Piers Garnham popped in too. Piers, what would you like to say, mate? God bless you. Good to see you.
Good evening, everybody.
Hey, how are you, man?
Just been listening to what's been talked about. It's it's interesting to have your insight. I mean, I personally, I believe there's been an agenda. I mentioned this the last time I was on the show. I think after the Second World War, some serious modelling was done in relation to population growth and projections, and how we were going to, what kind of effects we were going to have on the natural environment and the globe as a whole. And as a result of their very careful and accurate modelling, they realised that in a very short space of time, a few decades, ultimately be causing havoc. And they put a plan, I believe, this is my personal opinion, that they put a plan in the early 50s, in 54, when they created the Bilderberg Group, which is a meeting of, the heads of banks and corporations and royalty. They meet in a hotel once a year, and our senior politicians are all summoned to these meetings, and I believe they're giving a briefing for the year ahead. And I believe the primary reason for the Bilderberg Group being set up was to manage and control the human population and steer the New World Order globalist agenda. We're never told what actually occurs at these meetings. It's an off-the-record meeting between some of the most powerful people in the world. It occurs, annually, and it has done every year since '54. If you ask attendees like Clark or
Kenneth Clark was on the steering committee for decades, wasn't he?
You ask Ken, I've seen him interviewed about what goes on at these meetings, and he says, "Oh, it's just an off-the-record chat."
He said it on the dispatch. He said it on the dispatch box, didn't he? He said it. He was asked about it at the House. They did a debate about the Bilderberg Group. They did a debate, Piers, about Bilderberg Group in the Commons. Do you remember? Or at least there was a question asked, or a couple of questions asked, and Ken Clark actually stood up at the dispatch and defended Bilderberg at the dispatch. That was about, 4 or 5 years ago. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
As he would.
Yeah.
Was accused of touching up an underage gentleman as well, but that amounted to nothing. Ken Clark. I'd just like to add a thing about the whole sexual abuse thing. I do believe that this particular agenda, this globalist agenda of organising people, usurps the overriding rule of law and democracy. It's been deemed so important that it basically takes precedent over everything else. And I believe that what's ultimately going on is they've come up with a recipe. They are herding people from around the world into two population centres, namely North America, which would include Canada, and Western Europe. And so they have the full spectrum of genetic human diversity in those two population centers. They created the fiat currency system in the 70s, where they can rehypothecate debt over and over again with the derivatives market. And they've also been working in league with Afghan heroin producers and these South American cocaine producers, and producing a lot of off-book money. And filtering a lot of funds out of the fiat currency system and the central banks, and building infrastructure underground.
The question of the confidence
but anyway, the paedophilia aspect is that they've had to control key people in key positions, and there's this simpler way of doing it than making sure that whoever you promote to those positions has some sort of hang up, namely, and
has some depravity, has some kind of depravity.
I mean, it seems very clear to me that Ted Heath was a sexual deviant.
Hey, did you hear Piers? Another question. Just Veal, the top cop at Wiltshire Police, that said he was 120% sure that Ted Heath was a pedo. He quit. Was in the news yesterday, wasn't it? He's the fifth police commissioner to have quit in wherever it is, the police force that he moved to. He moved, didn't he? And Theresa May shut down the inquiry, Operation Conifer. Anyway, carry on, Piers. Carry on. That was just yesterday. Old Veal in the news again.
6 years as our Home Secretary, and was forced to set up the child sex abuse inquiry during that period. And that whole thing, when was the last time you ever heard about any of that? They managed to bury that. I mean, they had 3 chairs that came and went, all society
the
people,
IICSA.
designed to steer the whole, to push the whole thing, kick the can down the cul-de-sac. They set up an email account for people to give testimony of the things that had happened to them. They keep losing thousands of testimonies and apologizing for their lack of organization and ability. It's all fail. It's because so many people in Parliament were put in key positions of authority who had questionable sexual predilections, and they were basically using the care home system as a means to furnish these people with kids to abuse. It was all, but it meant that they could control these people, and Ted Heath was the primary example, and he took us into the EEC. I mean, people like Jimmy Savile were providing these VIPs with kids from the care home system. I mean, he was an abuser himself, and he mixed in some very high circles. He spent many Christmases or New Year's.
He was Charlie and Diana's marital advisor, wasn't he? He was so close. He was so close.
Very close to the royal family.
That to me, really, I got to say that does stink. Albert, does that not concern you that Charlie Boy he was so pally with a prolific pedo? There's no way MI5 didn't know about that. No way that they didn't know. Thatcher, all those Christmases at Chequers.
The short answer, Ollie, is this: that people who are into that type of thing, we're talking paedophilia, sexual deviancy, whatever, the people who are into that type of thing, in fact, try to cling on to important people in society, because nobody would believe that a friend, somebody who is regularly seen out with Prince Charles, would be a paedophile. So Savile would be there. That doesn't mean in any way, shape or form that Charles actually knew what he was doing. And the same thing with Andrew and this girl. Everybody's turning around and saying, because Andrew was a paedophile because he slept with this 17-year-old girl. Well, firstly, Andrew has completely and absolutely rejected that. The other person that she alleged had slept with her is an American dentist who asked her to say that outside the court, and he would sue her, and she's never said it outside the court. And the fact of the matter is that even if Andrew, who was in his 40s at the time, had in fact gone to bed with a good-looking 17-year-old girl, and I think a lot of 40-year-old men might have done that, even if he had done that, it's not paedophilia, because she is over the age of consent in this country. And she came here and saw him here as well as in America. Now, the fact of the matter is that these people, they all scream.
This event took place on an island for a convicted paedophile, that was owned and run by
I understand all of that. I understand all of that. I do understand all of that. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that he was that he was involved in actual paedophilia himself. And the fact of the matter is, but you see, I have a problem. I'm a trained police officer. I'm retired now, but nevertheless, I still think like a copper. Once a copper, always a copper. And I require evidence. Evidence I could put before a jury. And so far, there is no evidence that I could put before a jury about any of this stuff. I'm always in trouble over combating stuff. The Hamps did too. There is absolutely no evidence that what they say happened actually happened. There's no evidence to back the satanic stuff.
I've seen the testimony of those 2 children, but the one thing that really stands out about their testimony is the age of the children and the detail they go into over the course of like a 2-hour interview.
Exactly.
It's absolutely horrific.
Yes, absolutely.
Albert's just gone off somewhere. Yes, no, that's right. There you go. That's his room. That's Albert's front room, folks. I'm going to ask him, actually. I've got a request from Charlotte Jameson to ask him something, but I'll ask him that later on in the show, because...
Can you see that?
Yeah. Right. Yes. The Encyclopedia of Witchcraft and... What was the other bit?
Demonology.
Demonology.
Right. I my ex-wife is a born-again Christian, but she knows I like old books. And she said to me when I went over and saw her one day, "Oh, somebody's thrown out a load of old books." And she lives in West Hampstead, not too far from West Hampstead Police Station, who investigated the Hampstead 2.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I actually sat down, I went down, looked at these books. I've got a couple of very nice Agatha Christie's. I'm not into Agatha Christie, but the books were really nice leather-bound books.
Right.
And I picked this up, and my ex-wife is a born-again Christian, went freaked out when I picked this up. But I brought it home, put it on my desk, and sat down with a cup of tea, and I started reading through it. And I came across the story of a priest in the 1600s in Germany who was arrested and charged with witchcraft and demonology. And the things that he was charged with were exactly word for word the same as what the Hampstead 2 had said had happened to them. Drinking from skulls, seeing children murdered, and all that sort of stuff. It was word for word perfect to what was in this book, which happened to a priest in the 1600s. Now,
I don't believe it was word for word perfect. Those children may have been coached, but it would have been extremely difficult to coach them to verbatim say exactly what was written.
Well, it's
in
not.
This, and
the police in West Hampstead actually said that they didn't believe any of the satanic stuff. They actually believed that the children had been taken out of the country to the mother's boyfriend's country, which is, I believe, an Islamic country where paedophilia is legal, and in fact that they had been sexually abused outside of this country, in a country over which they have no control. They also said that they believed that the mother had beaten the children into saying it. Now, let's be fair about this. This book was found in West Hampstead. This book was, the children were in fact investigated by the police at West Hampstead Police Station. The places that the children mentioned, the schools and the churches, I used to live in West Hampstead, or near West Hampstead, so I knew them all. In fact, my children, we looked at the schools and things for when we were talking about putting my children through school. and in fact, so all of this was local to where I used to live. It's all local to where I used to live. It's also
hold on, Albert. Can I just say, because this is fascinating, but we haven't got that long left, and people are asking. I thought we were going to ask about the Constitution, and this is really what I want to get to with you today, because I want your take and everybody else's take, please. I want to know if Parliament can get away with what they're doing, if John Bercow can get away with what he's doing, if Brexit can be stolen, basically.
The short answer is Parliament will get away with everything they can get away with. And the only people who are in a position to stop Parliament, there are two classes of people who can do that. One is the police force, because just about everything that goes through Parliament breaks our law somewhere along the line. And the police force could go in and arrest them. Now, we know that our police force, the senior officers of the police force are, in fact, put in position. Cressida Dick, she's completely bloody useless. Has no idea.
Is she a Fabian? Is she a Fabian? Because she acts like it.
She is common purpose. That is a fact.
She's common purpose, says Dave.
So, and she is completely useless. And I talked to a couple of women on Facebook who served with her as constables in the police force, and they say that she is a really horrible woman.
Really.
And was a horrible person as a police officer. And
two dicks in charge of London. That Dick Khan as well.
Yeah. Well,
Cressida Dick and Dick Khan.
The 1701.
Useless,
let's stick to Constitution. Right, the 1701 Act of Settlement, which is major constitutional law because it lays down the inheritance for the crown. And Queen Elizabeth is on the throne today because she follows the line of succession laid down in that act in 1701.
Right.
Now, that has a little section in it that says that if you are a naturalized subject, you get most, though not all, of the rights of a natural born subject. You cannot sit in either House of Parliament. You cannot have any order of nobility. You cannot sit in the Privy Council, and you cannot hold any office of public trust, military or civil. Now, if we in fact applied that law today, we would empty Parliament, both houses. We would in fact empty just about every government building in the country. We would get rid of an awful lot of people out of our police force. I mean, I've worked with ethnic minority police officers. I have to say that some of them are very nice people, but a walking disaster area as police officers, my personal experience. Now, we'd get rid of a lot. There'd be no naturalised army officers. Now, our ancestors set up a period of time before they considered that you would knock the foreign out of somebody so they could be considered to be natural born English. And that was 10 generations. Now, there are very few people in this country from ethnic origins who've been here for 10 generations. Now, in 1949, and this is the point, the Labour government was in charge in 1949. They put through the 1949 Nationality Act, which repealed by implied repeal this section of the 1701 Act of Settlement, or did it? Because the Nationality Act is not constitutional law, it is ordinary statute law under administrative law. So it's administrative law, not constitutional law. And a constitutional law cannot be repealed by implied repeal by an ordinary statute law. So Parliament put through this 1949, the Labour Party put through this 1949 Parliament Act, which allows people who are naturalised British to be given orders of nobility. They're now filling our House of Lords. We have a group of 40 Muslim peers in the House of Lords who are doing everything they can to push Sharia law onto this country. We have...
Are they, Albert? Are they?
Yeah.
Are they?
No, they have regular meetings to discuss how they're going to push Sharia law in this country.
Really?
Yes, they're absolutely right. Now, we also have members of Parliament from all places. Boris Johnson, for example. I quite like Boris. I've met Boris. I've seen him walking around Thame where I live. I've been in a bookshop and chatted to him. I quite like Boris. But Boris's father came from somewhere like Lithuania. Now, Boris may have been born here, but he's naturalised by his birth certificate. And it takes 10 generations to knock the foreign out of him to make him English. So Boris shouldn't be in Parliament because the 1701
Act...
I
really do have to object to this line of questioning. 10 generations. This is insane.
No, it's not insane. Because I lived
in Australia for 10 years.
No.
I met people who'd lived first generation. And by the time they had kids, they were truly Australian. So the 10 generation thing is just
let's look at it from this point of view. When you become naturalised, your first duty of loyalty is to the country of your birth, or if you're born here, to your father's country, right? And basically our forefathers decided, and they were pretty switched on. I mean, you might think that these people who lived 1,000 years ago in this country were idiots. They weren't. And they knew very well what they were doing. They were very switched on. And they decided that it would take a number of generations to knock the foreign out of them. And they laid down the generations as being 10.
This is supposition.
Pardon?
This is supposition.
No, it's not.
This all those generations ago.
No, this is not supposition. This is what our forefathers laid
hold
down
on,
as
Albert. One second, Albert.
Piers, correct.
Yeah, go on, Piers. Go on. What did you say?
Piers.
What did you say, Piers?
Read a book called The History Thieves. I can't remember the name of the author right now, but it's a very good book, and it proves pretty categorically that history is rewritten by the victors. So they brush over all the bad stuff and write history the way they want people to remember it.
Correct.
So to be able to say categorically, that things happened 500, 600, 2008, however many years ago it was, is impossible.
Absolutely.
I mean, even if you read the best historical records available, even accounts at the time, the thing is, we don't really know what happened ever. I mean,
that's right.
when the history books that we're given in school, that are sanctioned by whatever government organization, Department of Education or whatever, we don't know how legitimate the history we're being taught is. I mean, we know for a fact that the kids in school today are being taught that the EU is the way forward, and that this is what we should all be ascribing to. They're just waiting, aren't they? Really, for them, all these good little,
The fact is, let me tell you, I have somewhere in the region.
Hold on, Albert. Carry on, Piers. Carry on, mate.
Just merely pointing out that we have to take everything we read historically with a pinch of salt. You can't say that. I mean.
It has to be said. There's even Albert, for example. I mean, even the details. Like, for example, I watched something with that Lucy Worsey or something, whatever, that historian on the BBC every now and then, and they were talking about fake fibs in the States in stateside history or whatever. And the Boston Tea Party, for example, the story about John Revere is completely taken out of context. There's very, very little actually historically that we can.
You have to understand that today's historians have learnt their trade over the last 30 years, and they are being taught by people who, in fact, have been, by their actions, very anti-British from day one. Basically, everybody in our Parliament, basically, has been anti-British. The only good MP in Parliament is the Beast of Bolsover. Because he's consistently done what he's elected to do, which is represented people who elected
him. Skinner. He's still done pretty well out of it, though, hasn't he? I don't know.
But it didn't matter whether it was a Tory government or a Labour government. He gave them all equally a bad time. And so
he's entertaining.
You have to look at these things right now.
Let me ask you. You and Scott. He says history is locked in the Vatican. That really is, I would have thought, our birthright from a point of view of I would have thought we deserve to know what is hidden in the Vatican, in those vaults.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you like to know what's in those? Go on,
Cachet, massive cachet of antiquity in the Vatican. The reason why it's a separate, one of the fundamental reasons why Vatican is a separate state, and it's got nothing to do with religion, it's to do with the fact that it's a massive cachet from the ancient past, and so much of antiquity that's been dug up, that proves that there've been, very advanced cultures from antiquity. Is in Vatican. It's there. They have all the evidence.
Exciting.
It basically, it makes the Catholic Church deeply hypocritical. All religion is just a tool, a mechanism of control. Ultimately, yes, the doctrine of Christ is a good one. As are many other faiths, but the ultimate reason for religion is control.
Go on, Albert. Go on.
Right. I've got somewhere in the region of 400 very old English history and constitutional law books. And what I do is I look in one book and I look for something, say Magna Carta, and I look up and see what it says about Magna Carta. And then I look in another one and see what it says about Magna Carta. And then I look in another one and I look at say what it says about Magna Carta. Now, you were taught in school that Magna Carta was an agreement between the barons and the king, and that in all probability you were also taught it only applies to the barons. That is complete and utter bloody nonsense. Every single one of my history books tells me that when it was found out that the barons were meeting with the king at Runnymede, thousands upon thousands of the free men of England went to the cupboard under the stairs, picked up their longbow and their quiver full of arrows and their broadsword, and they all trooped off to Runnymede. And we had a meeting at Runnymede of what they call the Estates of England, because there were bishops there, there were ordinary barons there, and there were thousands of the common men of England, and they laid down the rules. Now, Magna Carta, we are told, is the founding document for our Constitution. Nonsense. Magna Carta was a reissue of the Charter of Liberties of Henry I. That was a reissue of the laws of William I. That was a reissue of the laws of Edward the Confessor, and that was a reissue of the laws of Alfred the Great when he first put our laws on the statute book as the King's Law, when he became the King of the English. So you're not taught in school what my history books are telling me.
Okay, Albert, all right. Let me. Okay. Look, I want to attack this though from a different angle, and so let me just show folks this story that I'm looking at on the thing. Corbyn urges. This is RT's top story this evening. Corbyn urges May to back Labour's deal, an option of second referendum to break Brexit deadlock. So basically, I want you to take that history and put this into context and what it could mean. Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party has revealed they're pushing for PM Theresa May's government to back their deal and allow MPs the option to vote for a second EU referendum.
Yeah, but our constitution actually forbids our membership of anything like the EU. The Act of Supremacy of 1559.
Yeah, but they don't seem to care, do they? They don't seem to care.
But let me finish, Olly.
Go on. Okay,
contains an oath. That oath says that no foreign prince, person, prelate, state or potentate hath or ought to have any superiority, supremacy.
Yeah, but they're ignoring that. They're ignoring it. They're ignoring it.
Spiritual within this realm.
Can I say something?
Okay, Fergie, please. One sec, Albert. Let Fergie interject.
Let me finish, Olly. That oath then reappears again.
Acknowledge.
And it reappears again in the Bill of Rights.
Hold on. You can't talk over each other. Look, Albert, just hold that thought one sec. Fergie, you wanted to interject.
Right. But I say Albert's knowledge is absolutely incredible. But the fact of the matter is it counts for nothing. These people are going to do what they're going to do and not pay any attention to any president. They are going to wreck this Brexit, and the only thing that's going to stop them is the people. And unless the people, and I have a real problem with that at the moment, because I'm not sure the British people can do the French thing. But I think if we don't do the French thing, I think Brexit is stuffed.
Okay, look, PJ Tansley is correctly saying read comments, Ollie, so I will, and quite right. Chris Ford, the Vatican has been taken by Italian police to be given back to Rome. Hold on, Chris. You got to put a link on for that, please. Send me a link for that. Michelle Reed, that's the kind of thing Salvini.
I think it's moody.
That's the kind of thing that Salvini might just do. That would be so cool. English Constitution, not British, says Michelle Reed.
Absolutely not British.
John Middleton, once there is enough subject open up, the barons can step in, from what I've read. But that didn't work, did it, Albert? Briefly?
Well, briefly, the barons put in their petition. They were not allowed to actually go into Buckingham Palace and hand it to the Queen, which is what Article 61 requires. They were stood outside on the pavement and they handed it to an equerry. We don't actually know whether the Queen actually saw it or not. We also, when they got the reply, which was just under the 40 days later, that reply was written by a secretary or some underling in Buckingham Palace, not by the Queen. So we really don't know what's going on with the Queen. What we do know is that in November 2014...
I think we do. I think we absolutely know what's going on with the Queen.
Hold on a second.
She's not going to do anything to interject.
Can I say something? What we do know is that in November 2014, David Cameron said that the Queen cannot go anywhere or say anything in public that he hasn't first approved. Now, that gives the Queen less freedom than you have. You can go where you like and say what you like, but the Queen of England can't. That makes the Queen of England a prisoner of the Parliament. And the Queen of England needs to be rescued by the people. And my personal feeling now is that this has gone on so far, and there are so many traitors in Parliament, that the best thing we can do is go in and pick the lot up and throw them straight over the balcony into the Thames.
We need a general election, and we need people to vote not Tory. We need them to vote for proper Brexit parties. That's the only choice we have. That we can,
the choice you have is to try and do this with an election, which is, you're never going to get that, or actually to go for full-blown revolution. And we have a full-blown revolution in this country every 400 years. The last one was in 1689. So we are pretty well coming up to the stage when we're due for another one.
So you honestly believe that? Do you honestly believe that? I mean,
yes, I honestly believe
the vast majority of this country just want a pint on a Friday. What's your problem? That's your problem.
We're not going to have what happened in France.
I would have no
hold on a sec. Okay.
Parliament look, with a gun and shooting every last one of them.
The bottom line, we have. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah,
let me ask you all a question. I want you all to answer this, please. I don't know, quite aside from what the motivations are, putting all that aside and if you like, the baggage, what Nigel Farage has done by taking on the leadership of the new Brexit party, does that rule the vote? Does that whittle down UKIP, the rejuvenated UKIP's vote at the next general election? And does that cut down the prospect quite considerably of there being any chance of some sort of maybe forward thinking towards some sort of proportional representational system, which the only way that could transpire is by having maybe some UKIP influence in a coalition? They are poised, or were poised, the way things were going with Labour and the Conservatives being found out basically during the course of this Parliament. The UKIP are on course, or were on course, to pick up a few seats, it seems to me, and could, if they targeted particularly, a certain few and what have you, and better placed than the other smaller parties, it just seemed to me, from a pragmatic point of view. Now, with the Brexit party, it seems to me that is scuppered, and actually this just lends itself to this status quo, these this lib lab con.
Olly,
basically.
Farage is talking about coming back to UKIP because they won't be able to get the Brexit party up and running and have representatives
when did he say
in
that?
Each constituency. I mean, I don't know. There was an article in some paper. I can't
Only yesterday he said he was going to lead the Brexit party, mate. Only the day before yesterday.
Can I answer this, Olly?
Okay, all right. Albert, go on, please.
Right.
I'll answer that. Yeah.
I mean, I know Farage. I used to be in UKIP. Farage, in fact, has thrown out everybody out of UKIP who had any half-decent ideas about getting us out of the European Union. Farage has refused to allow treason to be discussed at UKIP. Farage is
Correct.
in this for Farage.
Correct.
Farage has not now and never has had the slightest intention of coming out of Europe. Farage, he actually conceded the vote on the referendum before the vote was counted. He conceded it. He then made up some bull story.
That could have been a bit of insider dealing.
Hold on.
Could have been some share dealing there.
He made up some cock and bull story about the fact that he had done that to get the odds up on the bookies so that he could win a better
did he say that?
more money
he
at the
didn't
bookies.
That, did he?
Do you think he is controlled opposition?
I'm actually convinced. Farage, instead of doing, once the referendum result was in, and Farage was the leader of UKIP who'd pushed for that referendum, instead of putting UKIP on a war footing to fight a general election, which is what I would have done, Farage throws his hands up in the air and walks away from UKIP with some cock and bull story about people trying to kill him. It is crap. Farage had no intentions of us leaving the European Union. By leaving the way that he did, he threw UKIP onto the rubbish heap for 2 years. Whilst Farage was in charge of UKIP,
I agree with Albert.
Whilst Farage was in charge of UKIP, he completely sidelined Batten. He would not allow Batten to talk or do anything. And yet Batten is a much better man and a much better leader than Farage, although Farage is a much better public speaker. But Batten has got his finger on the button. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows exactly what the people of this country want. Farage just wants what's good for Farage.
Albert, question, please.
Just let me finish with this little point.
Okay, you keep repeating yourself.
Said
Go on.
That in the event of us going past the time and holding European elections, Farage is going to stand for the European Parliament again. Farage has never had any intentions of leaving the European Union.
Okay, right. So Ben Walker was on here last night, and it was a terrible show because it kept breaking up. And in fact, we postponed it. We're doing it on Thursday at 7. Ben Walker from the NEC at UKIP. And my question to him was, is Nigel Farage setting up or involvement in this new party, the Brexit Party, going to dent UKIP's chances of being involved in a maybe DUP Tory UKIP coalition at the next general election? And what do you think about that?
Well, I saw earlier on that this new party of Farage that he wants to set up had fallen flat on its face. Nobody was joining. So basically,
how much of a threat is Farage? He is going to dent UKIP, is he not? I mean, you know, aside from the motivation and how cynical it may or may not be, the fact is that he's going to divide any vote that would be for truly pro-Brexit parties. No. And it seems to me the only one that's of any use, really, as part of a coalition, to actually get 1 or 2 seats is UKIP. And now that chance is scuppered with the Brexit Party. Because the Brexit Party is going to get all the headlines in the media, and UKIP is just the Looney Tunes. Even Guido, for crying out loud. Order.com, whatever it is. Guido Fawkes, which I like, and it's quite funny and all that. But they are just, their language about UKIP is just something out of a playground.
Everybody's
maybe
going to
they're
have to
frightened of UKIP.
bite the bullet and vote UKIP. I mean, we cannot vote Tory. We
cannot
vote Labour. If you're a true Brexiteer, you have to do away with what you voted for a lifetime and vote for what you truly believe in. And if you don't, thumbs up. I mean, like, I really, truly hope that people will see that May's government is just pure subterfuge, pure duplicity, pure lies. Everything out of that woman's mouth and all her cohorts is pure, unadulterated lies. And there's nothing, you know, if she calls a snap general election, really genuinely wants Brexit to happen, cannot vote Tory. And that goes for the Labour lot as well. They cannot vote Labour, Tory. If you want to see the UK leave the European Union properly, you're going to have to vote UKIP. As much as that might sound like, you know, like you've ever contemplated in your life, you're just going to have to swallow your pride and do it for the sake of the country, because it's the only option we've got.
I'm not sure.
Dave Fergie.
The reason why is that voting is the answer.
Oh, blimey. You're breaking in and out again. You're breaking up again. So, Dave, speak a bit closer to your microphone. Sorry.
Right. So, I say, I don't is the answer. I think the system is the problem. If we vote UKIP, are we going to get another 4 million votes and no MPs?
Well, yeah, but that's the point. Because UKIP is the one party in power, this is my theory, yeah, that would be looking to discuss proportional representation. Given that chance, given that bite of the cherry, they might just say, yeah, we'll help you out in a coalition, but we want to talk about PR. That could make a difference. I mean, the only way we can change this corruption,
I've changed
unless
my
we take
mind
up arms.
on the hour, every hour. First of all, I thought, Tommy Robinson, UKIP, big mistake. And then I thought about it. Tommy Robinson, whether you like him or hate him, brings a lot of people with him.
That's right. A lot of people that haven't been represented for a long time.
So I actually think Batten's quite smart in that respect.
Yeah. And he's also given...
I think that will increase the UKIP vote. What they've got to do is convince
Dave, briefly, there's something to be said for giving.
Hang on.
Okay, sorry.
What they've got to do is to convince, if you like, the middle of the road people that by voting for a Tommy Robinson party, they're not voting for an extreme view. And if anybody reads Tommy's book, and I've read it, the guy's not an extremist. He does some very silly things, but he's not an extremist. And he's certainly not a racist.
The mainstream media is not representative of what people actually genuinely. Mainstream media is owned by a bunch of corporations who are globalists and have the New World Order philosophy, and this is what they pump out. So people are literally bombarded day in, day out. They cannot. It's like this sound, just this noise, they're just being bombarded. How they can actually they need to step away from mainstream media and start to sort of look at alternative media and start to sort of make deductions for themselves, because
it would help.
Don't you think? I mean, the interesting thing for me is I'm talking to ordinary folks who, hey, you might say are not awake, but all of a sudden they're going, hang on, what the hell's this all? And all of a sudden you've got a groundswell of people saying this system ain't for us.
I hope so. I hope so.
There are possibilities, but personally, I've changed my view. At the next general election, because there is no other choice, I'll vote UKIP.
We're gonna have to. I mean, there is no alternative. I mean, May was put in power, I believe, purely to make sure Brexit didn't happen, and if it did happen, then by name only. She was literally put in power by the globalists, the Bilderbergers, the people she works for. She doesn't work for the British people. She works for the Bilderberg group.
Oh, correct. She's done a great job. I mean, May has done the job.
Who did you vote for, Dave? Who did you vote for last time?
Last time I voted UKIP.
You did vote UKIP last time. You see, I voted Tory last time, and the reason I voted Tory was because I thought if I don't vote Tory, and if a lot of people like me don't vote Tory, despite the fact that it is in the manifesto that they would respect the referendum result, then Labour would get in. And if Labour got in, I thought the Blairites would seize power from Corbyn and would have someone like Keir Starmer leading it now. And there's no question that they would have betrayed their referendum pledge to honour the referendum. That was my thinking, and therefore I voted Tory. Hold on, but now I've joined UKIP. Because not because I particularly support them, because I'm a floating voter. I'm still a floating voter. UKIP could well not get my vote yet if they screw things up somehow. But I want to support the party, the single party that I think has got the chance to help deliver Brexit and to help deliver some semblance of balance in the Commons. After what we've seen, they have gone back. They've gone back on that referendum pledge. They've gone back on that referendum pledge. In my opinion, both parties have, mainly through their parliamentarians and the parties not being strict. And, for example, saying we're withholding the whip if you go against the manifesto, which is what you're doing. And I haven't seen that. And that's the reason that I finally, and about bloody time probably, but basically, I'll never vote Lib Lab Con again. No, not now.
We've got to ignore everything, every headline, every bit of news, every negative statement made about UKIP over the course. If there is a general election in February, at the end of February, and some of the papers have been talking about that happening, if there is a general election at the end of February, literally bombard the masses with anti-UKIP stuff. We're going to have to ignore it all. Look at what's happened over the course of the last couple of years. Look at the way May's government has thwarted Brexit at every possible turn, and vote with our hearts. That is the only choice we have. But they are literally, if there is one, mass media is going to go crazy for anti-UKIP sentiment. I mean, it's going to be a wall of anti-UKIP sound. Tommy Robinson's a racist. Bannon's a racist. You know, everybody in UKIP's a racist and a thug and a thickie, and we're going to be absolutely bombarded with it. But we've got to have to stand our ground. Anybody who wants to see this country have some autonomy and make its own decisions, because believe you me, by 2022. We're done. You know, it's over. You know, I mean, if we don't get out now, it's over.
Screwed.
We are part of the federal state of Europe. You know, that's it. It's game over.
Olly.
You know, seriously.
Burgess.
I mean, what I can't understand.
Olly.
Corbyn.
Hold
Corbyn
on. Okay, blimey. Go on, Dave Fergie. Go on.
Yeah, Corbyn had a chance to really set his stall out. And, you know, considering an estimated, 55% of Labour voters voted to. Why is he just ignoring them? I mean, it's insanity.
Yeah.
Unless, again, getting back to what Albert was saying, they've got something up.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only reason I can put it. Because
Olly.
I don't know.
Had he turned around and said, I'm going to take us out, WTO, no problem, it would be a landslide, an absolute landslide, because he'd have his Labour voters, plus he'd have all of us. I just can't understand the logic.
Hold on, go on. Okay, Fergie, you're saying that if Corbyn said, if he went to the public and said with an election pledge to go all out on WTOs, that it would be a landslide. That's your opinion for Labour?
Yeah, I believe
absolutely.
Yeah.
Anybody who votes for WTO.
But would you trust them to do it? You see, my point is I would never trust, I never voted Liberal ever anyway, but I'd never vote Tory or Labour again for the simple reason that they both betrayed. It's not just about Corbyn.
It'll be a hung parliament.
It's not just about Corbyn. As this parliamentary session has proven, it is just as much now about Parliament, because that's the way that's the instrument they're using to prize us out of Brexit, basically, to go back on what they've already done. No, Burgess, go on, Albert Burgess.
Olly, right. The whole point here is that people are arguing about coming out of Europe, but they don't actually understand what the English Constitution tells them. They don't understand English constitutional law. They don't understand common law. Common law is much more than, you know, without harm, whatever. I've never actually seen that.
No loss, no harm, no injury.
Yeah, well, I've never actually seen that phrase used in any of my books on the common law, and I have quite a few, some of them written by some of our most eminent judges throughout history. Right. Never seen
We've got
phrase.
Stephen Lang here. Leader of the
people,
Dragons. God bless you. Stephen Lang is in the comments. Go on, carry on.
Hold on. People keep throwing up these nice sounding phrases which mean nothing because they have no idea what they're talking about. People need to learn about the English Constitution. Right. Now, I sent you a copy of my book, did I not, over the internet?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you did. Thank you.
Did you look at it?
No.
Well, then can I suggest you do?
Yes,
now,
I was looking for it. I don't know which download folder it's in.
I've actually condensed 800 years of legal history into this book.
Layman's Guide to the English Constitution.
Yes, right. I have done that. Now, I don't get any royalties from this. I said to the man that was dealing with that side of it, I don't want to be seen to be making money from this book. I want to educate the population. So if you can see the ISBN number.
Right. Hold on a sec. We haven't got you on this. Oh, there you go. There's the ISBN number. You can all scan that and then get a torrent.
Right.
Or I'll just send you the copy that Albert sent me.
Yeah, right. Alternatively, you can buy it. It costs you £5 or £6 to buy it. Right. Alternatively, you can email me at albertburgess@hotmail.com and I will attach the version from my desktop to an email and I will send it to you free of charge.
Albert, what's your email? Albert Burgess at what?
At hotmail.com.
Hotmail.com. That's very kind. I'm going to pin that in the comments.
Now, I'm quite happy to send the copy from my desktop to anybody who wants it. You need to understand what English law says about foreign interference in the government of this country. You need to understand how our law developed. And I've put 800 years into 32 pages with pictures And everybody that's read it so far has said it should be standard reading in every school. It's actually written for children to understand, because I wanted children to learn about the country they were born into. Gerard Batten has written a very good book on the Constitution, which is called Inglorious Revolution. I don't have his copy to hand, but the book is called Inglorious Revolution, and it is by Gerard Batten and Pavel Stroilov. Stroilov is his research assistant.
Right.
But it is a very good book. It's about £8. It's £8 well worth spending. It does an in-depth thing into the Constitution. His one is written for adults to understand and read. My one's written for children, so it's a much easier read, and it's easier to understand. And basically, everybody needs to understand what the law of this country actually says about foreign interference in this country. And what it's saying is that this is still the law in this country. And every European treaty, every last one of them, from Edward Heath taking us into the EEC, right up to the very last, which I think is the Lisbon Treaty, isn't it? Right up to the very last treaty, has actually been an act of treason against the Constitution. When John Major put us through and put Maastricht through and said that the Queen is now a citizen of Europe, that is a constitutional impossibility. The only person above the Queen is God, according to our law.
Why then, having said everything you've said, do you not think there's an overriding agenda that usurps the natural law of democracy? It makes logical sense to believe that that's the case.
There is an overriding agenda, but it is focused in the hands of a few thousand people in this country, just a few thousand out of the 65 million, and they are in positions of power. They're in positions of authority.
It's necessary to centralize power and create centralized power because they are so concerned about the humanity's going. They've looked at them, they've modeled it, they've seen that we're out of control. David Attenborough stood up and said, look, if we don't change our ways radically like yesterday, we're screwed, you know. So
you should never listen to academics.
They have an overriding agenda that usurps everything
you should
you're
never listen
about.
to academics. Academics might be highly educated, but they've got no common sense. And the fact of the matter is that English law is the best law available in this world today. We do not need the Human Rights Act. We've never needed the Human Rights Act. Everything covered by the Human Rights Act was already covered by English law. We gave, i.e. Churchill gave, the Human Rights Act to Europe because their reputation on human rights, what with Hitler and the Nazis and the French and the guillotine and all doing away with their royal family, has been total crap for hundreds of years. So he gave them the Human Rights Act. But that was loosely based on our law, but our law is much better. Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights, habeas corpus, they provide far more freedom than the Human Rights Act. And in fact, the Human Rights Act is crushing our freedom because it does not allow us to throw out people who come here as guests of us, of the indigenous people, these islands. They've come here as our guests. We've let them in. We've welcomed them. They then break our laws in the most outrageous ways possible, and we can't throw them back because the Human Rights Act says they are entitled to family life, and the man's got his wife and his 6 kids here. You're not hearing.
Listen. There's an overriding agenda that usurps everything you're talking about.
Correct.
Since the 50s, they've basically decided that everything you're talking about and everything you're talking about makes perfect sense, and you're absolutely spot on right. However, they've looked at the way the world's going and the population explosion, and they've decided that this is more important than anything you're talking about, and it usurps the rule of law and it usurps the rule of democracy.
Steve, freedom. Hold on, people. People, Steve, hold on, Albert. Oh, let me involve the comments as well, for crying out loud. Steve Freedom sums it up. Frankfurt School, Kalergi, Third Reich, European Union, UN. It is all there in documentary proof.
He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. It is all there. But all of that is contrary to English law. And what we need to do as English people is enforce English law. Now, somebody's queried the fact I'm talking about the English Constitution and not the British. The reason is there is no such animal as a British Constitution, because when Edward III captured the Scots King David, he allowed him to go back and rule Scotland as a vassal king to England and to keep Scottish law. So there is an English constitution which covers us and Wales, and a Scottish constitution which covers Scotland. And if you go to Scotland today, Scottish law is still different in a lot of respects to English law. So there is no British constitution.
This is all. None of this matters any longer. We're not living in this world any longer. What you're saying is right, but these people don't care. Their philosophy is that the world is such a place where humanity is breeding itself into extinction. They've come up with an idea that they believe will save humanity, whatever that is, and that overrides. How do we
save themselves from going to prison?
Yeah, but you're not listening to what I'm saying. There are a couple of thousand.
I am listening.
Say there are 5,000 people in this country who are avidly pushing the agenda you're talking about.
Chris Ford says it pretty well. The psychopaths agenda. Psychos. Yeah, they rise to the top.
There are 65 million of us who could sit on them. And the fact
we couldn't, because people don't even realise how prolific they are.
People to sit on them, you need to teach them about the law of this country and how it protects us.
Well, actually, you need to teach them about more than that, Albert, because you do need to teach them that psychos do rise to the top because they've got no empathy, so they don't care who they tread on. And that is a real massive problem. Michael Black came on the show about, ages ago. Awesome bloke. And he was talking about psychos. I asked him what the proportion was. He reckoned it was about 40%. I thought it was about 2%. And even that's dangerous if you think about it. If you think about the added advantage somebody has if they don't give a stuff, what they do, who they hurt, blah, 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 all that. That is a massive problem.
Look at the three M's. May, Macron, Merkel. All with no children. They're married, but they don't have kids. These are the typical psychos. May, Macron, Merkel. They're all members of the globalist deep state. They're all working for Bilderberg. They don't have any interest in real party politics. Their agenda is above and beyond the realms of party politics and proper diplomacy and proper democracy. We're living in this world. Look at what's happening in France. The French are revolutionists, and France is on fire every bloody weekend. The Gilets jaunes get out there and they're back of Macron, but the globalists put Macron in power. The globalists put May in power. They put Merkel in power. They are changing the dynamics of Europe deliberately, being painted as sort of this big love fest, and how we all got to be together. It's no different from the Nazi philosophy in the sense that they try to do it by force. Now they're doing it by subterfuge. It's exactly the same philosophy, just by different means. And if people can't just get their heads around that, this is why we're so divided. And why I've fallen friends and why the world we live in today is just a really complicated and rather depressing place. Because I'd love to listen to you talking about true nature of law in Britain and how we should all understand this, but they don't care about that because the average Joe doesn't know anything about that.
Yeah, but nonetheless, it's an important argument to have, Piers, isn't it? It is an important argument to have.
It is. Absolutely, fundamentally it is. But what's so shocking is that the agenda at play right now, all of this, and they think they can get away with it because they can use their clever terminology and they can use their their highfalutin language and bombard people with it, and to the point where nobody knows anything any longer, and they're confused. And because the globalist agenda owns the mainstream media and pumps it out in the Guardian and the Observer and the Independent and now the Daily Mail. You know, I mean, they've taken over the Daily Mail. You know, I mean,
they've taken over the Express. No, the Mail was always dodgy. The Mail has always been dodgy. They were calling Hitler a gentleman right into 1939. They were pretty, but they bought the Express, didn't they? And the Express's line now is just incredible. Saying, you know, in the run-up to May's vote in December, which was postponed, they were saying in their editorial how MPs should be getting behind that to give away the veto. Sorry, go on, Dave. Yeah.
Ollie, can
Albert, please.
In the 1970s, Heath was advocating, and they held meetings at the Connaught Hotel, breakfast meetings at the Connaught Hotel, which were attended by the British Council for the European Movement, the various members of Parliament and various ministers, and the heads of all of the media people. And the object of the exercise was to suborn the media into towing the government line. The BBC actually said we can't do that because we've got our charter, we have to be independent. And in fact they would then William Whitelaw, who was Lord President of the Privy Council at the time, was tasked with talking to the BBC, and I'm fairly sure that he actually threatened them with their license fee and putting them out of business. And after that, the BBC towed the same line as everybody else, and everybody was there. There was a department set up in a back room at Chatham House with 5 people in it, one of whom was a woman who was in a wheelchair, but was very avidly one of Heath's people. And they produced thousands upon thousands of letters every day in which they were saying that the European Union or the European Economic Community was a great idea and we've got to join ASAP. These were then sent off to the political parties and to various other groups that were pro-Europe, and they were then sent and signed and sent by them people to the letters pages of the newspapers, who duly printed them. When people wrote to the government and said, you know, we think that this is unconstitutional, what you're doing, it's all wrong, we want to know what the hell is going on, because in 1972 there were still a few people in this country who understood the Constitution. Then those letters were sent down to this back room at Chatham House, and their people there would sit down and pen an answer to them, which would then be sent back to the people who wrote the letters. The whole thing was a fix from day one. The whole thing, complete, absolute, total, was an act of treason from day one. And it is still treason today. Now, we can still arrest people for treason. Our problem at the moment is we have people like Cressida Dick in place. Now, I talked to a lady, she's actually a lady, she's an Irish, she's married to an Irish peer, and she has a friend who's a retired chief superintendent who used to be Cressida Dick's boss. And he told her, and she told me, that Cressida Dick would stamp anybody into the ground to get promotion. And that's exactly what she's got. She is now the top police officer in the country. When I started talking 14 years ago, I said 2 things. This is a numbers game and it will take time. Now, when we first took the treason to the police, they laughed. Then after a while, they stopped laughing and started talking, every police force in the country started talking to every other police force about treason. Not about how to deal with it, but how to avoid dealing with it. Now we have 17 police forces nationally, county police forces, including the Police Service of Northern Ireland, and they in fact have all crimed and given us a crime number for acts of treason against named government ministers. They then, because the Metropolitan Police are better placed financially and globally to investigate government and their actions, these police forces have sent these reports to the Metropolitan Police for them to investigate. And because they've done that, we also have a Metropolitan Police crime number. It's 0600 something or other. But we also have that from several different police forces, because the Met Police have lumped these 5 treason allegations, the 5 separate treason allegations together, and they've lumped them all in as allegations of treason. And our problem is that the Metropolitan Police are refusing to investigate. Now, Sir Bernard Hogan Howe, when I submitted a treason allegation written for me by a barrister...
Hold on a sec. Albert, hold on. The problem, Dave Fergie, is it not, is that there is just too much information for people to take in, and they're tired, all the usual stuff. This is all incredible, fascinating. The comments I'm reading, I mean, it's all very important. Yeah, but the fact is that people just haven't got any chance of taking in this kind of information in the timescale that's required. We are on the brink of having our sovereignty taken away from us, are we not? And there's not a hope in hell. Go on, Dave. Go on.
That God made 10 laws. Apparently, the European Union have made 22,000 so far. I admire Albert's tenacity in trying to approach it from a legal point of view. But the law is an ass, and the law is not going to be followed by these bastards. So I think we're wasting our time going down that track. Going to change the current situation is when these politicians...
it is the track to go down, and the way you go down it is you actually...
Hang on.
We need to go down various tracks,
Can I just finish?
Go on, Dave.
The only way these politicians are going to respond to us is when they get really, really scared. Now, am I advocating violence? Of course. But there must come a time when that Dominic Grieve fellow opens his mouth. He's got to think to himself, hang on, I could be putting myself on the spot here. We've got to get to that position, because at the moment, Subri and co. are just, I mean, the ridiculousness of this Nazi comment.
Yeah.
When you look at the things that she said previously.
Yeah, that's right. When you look at the fact that her constituents voted 70%
to leave. To understand that if they mouth off like this, there is a consequence. There's a consequence.
Yeah, that's
right. And the people have got to make that consequence. And I don't think it's going to come from the law, per se.
Okay, let me just take a few comments. Can I
comment on that last remark?
You can, and please hold that thought, sir. But let me just take a few comments, because we're getting so many comments coming in. Victor Edward V. Alan, good evening, sir. We are headed into a dystopian nightmare. Till people realise this, we can't get the support we and our children need. John Middleton, treason. Haha, look at your bank card, not your name, your employment name of the government reality. Employment name of the government reality. Stephen Lang, and they are all listed as a corporation. PJ Tansley, what is the options if no deal is removed? Because that is the end of Brexit. If it happens, I want to know what can be done other than the 1972 Communities Act, other than repealing the ECA. So that's something maybe you can try and remember that question, please, Albert. Helen Lasky-Smith says, Sky News is reporting all things can go wrong. Immigration control was one, yet illegals came in under the noses of the two ships since Sunday. We were meant to be having more. Stephen Lang says dereliction of duty. PJ Tansley, worst part of Brexit is it continues the illusion of democracy. And I don't think it does now, does it? And a part of me just wants the country to stay in the EU. Blimey, PJ, lay down, man, lay down. Fred Blog, exactly, Ollie. Simple is beautiful. Simple is what suits me. Stephen Lang, I agree, but history has proven when the SH1, when the shit hits the fan, they draw ranks and protect the party. John, replying to Victor. John, okay, right. Go on. What did you want to say, Albert? I'm going to close up this show.
I was going to say that
very soon, because I need a pee.
Yeah, the other day that I posted on Facebook that I think we've reached that happy stage now where we need a dozen or so really big bruisers to go to a surgery for an MP and to talk to him with baseball bats and explain to him that if we come back the next time, then he's not going to walk away from it.
But then,
I thought you were an ex-policeman.
As the man said, these people they need to fear the public, because that people have said it before that the people should not fear government. Government should fear the public, and so far nobody is putting any fear into the government, and the fact is you can put fear into people. We have treason laws today because I stopped Tony Blair repealing them. And I did that because he asked Goldsmith to repeal them. He then went to the Law Commission. I then emailed the Law Commission and said, if you repeal a treason law, you remove a protection from the sovereign and the Constitution and place them at grave risk. And that itself is an act of treason. And they came back by return and said, because we don't actually repeal it, we only recommend the repeal. So I went back by return and I said to them, if you recommend the repeal of a treason act, then that constitutes a conspiracy with others to place the sovereign and Constitution at grave risk by removing the protections around them. That is an act of treason. I said, now, I then went on to say, I don't know you. I am not sleeping with your sister. If you want to spend the rest of your natural life in prison, I don't care. You recommend the repeal of another treason act, and I am going to do my level best, which is extremely good, to see that that is where you spend the rest of your life. Now, it took 3 weeks for them to come back from that. After which, during that 3 weeks, you can guarantee they'd spoken to every lawyer they could find, and they were lawyers themselves, and looked in every book they could find. And then they came back and they said, we have no plans to look at the treason laws. Now, if I email the Law Commission about something, normally the first thing they put on the top of the email back to me is, we're not looking at the treason laws. So we have treason laws because I stopped them getting rid of them. As long as we have treason laws, then we can still hang people. And Tony Blair in 1998 or something put a bill through taking away the death penalty. Well, that makes treason a win-win situation. If your treason is successful, you get the country. This is what government are relying on at the moment, their treason being successful. If it is not successful, then they get convicted and sent to prison for a long time. They come out after a few years, having had somebody ghostwrite a book for them, which is made into a television series and a major blockbuster film. And then basically all that money, because it can't be paid into a bank over here for them, is paid into a bank on an offshore account. And then they come out and they are extremely rich. That makes treason a win-win situation. The common law deals with that by actually repealing or by voiding the repeal of the death penalty so that we still have the full force of the treason law in effect. Does that make sense?
Question? I mean, do you everything you're saying makes, it's very interesting. You're a very knowledgeable guy, and I hold my hat up to you. But do we think that Trump and his administration are going to somehow influence the direction of a Brexit?
Well, they already have. Can you imagine if Hillary Clinton had been in there? We wouldn't have stood a bloody hope. Anyway, carry on.
FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Security Association documents that are, that he keeps threatening to release that prove that MI6 and Australian intelligence basically worked in conjunction with the Dems in order to try and thwart Trump's attempt to get elected in 2016. I mean, this proves categorically that our foreign intelligence, operations are trying to change the direction of elections, in the United States. I mean, this whole Russian nonsense is just nonsense. Trump has said it time immemorial. I mean, I don't know whether the British people realize the weight of or how important that is. That the implications involved with just this is so deep state. It's just quite extraordinary. I have a inclination that something's going to happen within the course of the next couple of months, America, that will have a knock-on effect in terms of the way Brexit goes. At least that's what I'm hoping for, because I do believe. I do believe Trump is more or less a perverse distract. He's designed to sort of infuriate and discombobulate and distract everybody. And I do believe the people he's working for are actually trying to bring down the philosophy that we've been talking about, this overarching agenda that usurps the rule of law and democracy.
You don't think Trump's a Russian, Piers? You don't think he's a Russian?
I genuinely believe that he's doing his best to. I think he is just a perverse distraction. I think that's what he's designed for. Everybody hates him. Everybody loathes him. The press have, 99.9% of the press.
I think,
the odd statement,
okay.
is negative towards Trump, and yet he's dealing with North Korea, and he's doing a lot of good stuff. He's
okay.
Designed.
Look, I think you're right. Albert, will you please come on again soon, please, sir?
Yes, if you want me to.
Very much, thank you. And Piers, I don't know. I know you're doing a lot of choir practice these days and stuff like that.
No, I think this has been a very interesting discussion between all four of us, and I genuinely hope anybody that's actually bothered to listen has got something out of this, because there are some really erudite, knowledgeable people here tonight, who've had a genuinely mature and interesting conversation. I think this is worthy radio.
God bless you, Piers. God bless you, Albert Burgess. God bless you, Dave Fergie. Oh, hold on. What happened to the music there? There we go.
Nice talking to you.
Awesome having you chaps, and I look forward to more of this, please. It's only supposed to be an hour, the show these days. Only supposed to be an hour, yeah? So, hey, but I need a pee. I got a bladder problem, and I got to cook and stuff. I've got to cook. Good beer, maybe. And thank you so much, everybody that got involved. And I'm sorry if I didn't read more comments. But yeah, awesome conversation, fascinating, and yeah. Oh, it feels so frustrating though, because we never really have an answer, do we? We never have any answer, really. Apart from keep talking. That's a good one. That is a good one. I definitely subscribe to that. And thank you. God bless you. God bless you, folks, that come on this show. God bless you. I tell you, really appreciate it. Alan Ashwood is in the comments tonight. Victor Edward V, and he was trying to get on and said that they had a problem with the tech. Alan, I would love to do a show with you, man. I want to hear what is going on in your opinion now. How close to the deadline we are before, frankly, well, we are looking at the dystopian nightmare, yeah, that you mentioned in the comments. I'd like to hear about that a bit more. Oh, blimey. So yeah, there you go. That was Daily Brexit. I'm Olly Connelly. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow, 7 o'clock. No idea what it is. Ben Walker on Thursday about UKIP and Farage. There you go. All right. Ciao. God bless you. Here's to us and bugger plutocracy. Yeah, there you go. That was it. Yeah.
Yep. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Albert. Thank you. Cheerio. Nighty night. God bless you. And oh yeah, Charlotte Jameson had a request. Because she wanted you to take your shirt off.
If you're good looking, I might take it all off.
Oh, blimey. Okay, all right. Well, I've closed the camera thing now, anyway. Anyway, right. Yes. Okay. Ciao, folks. Blimey, I'm off to take a pee. God bless you. See you tomorrow. Thank you, Dave. Right.